want to start with a case study because I'm living this right now, like this morning. I almost couldn't get a shower to live this. So I have a client that last year did $400,000 worth of services business for us. So we billed him for $400,000. We'd agreed in March last year to raise the value of those services or the price for those services from $300,000 to $400,000. And we negotiated it. We put the amendment in front of him. We worked through all of last year. He paid his bills. And about 4 weeks ago, he said, I was thinking about last year. I'd like to get a credit on part of the difference between the $300,000 that you're billing me and the $400,000 we agreed to go to. And our question was, well, was there anything wrong with the service? He said, no, but I just really think I shouldn't have paid so much. So what should I do? What should I do? What? That's too bad. Okay. Pound sand, that's an interesting strategy. What should I do? Somebody else, what should I do? Pray. Pray. Okay. Pray. Absolutely. I prayed that he'd pay us more, and he did for a while, right? So this money's already gone through our books. It's on our P&L. We made a profit on it, and I have a manager who owns that P&L. She's the one who's talking to him, and he's saying, well, what if we split the difference? Is that a good strategy? All I'm saying, this is what I really do every day, is I play Solomon a lot, trying to cut babies in half, trying to find out who the real parents are. That's the kind of stuff I really do on a real basis. But what I've tried to do is to run my company based on a series of principles. So today, this morning, when I was talking to my vice president who owns this book of business, she's calling me at 5 o'clock in the morning, California time, because she wants to get this done with her customer before the day is over. And she said to me, you know what, I think I get it. We just got to go with the 3 C's. So earlier there was a discussion about values, and we run our company on a series of principles which fit right in with the concept of values. And one of the principles we have is the 3 C's. We don't believe that the customer's always right. We believe that every time you look at a problem, you need to weigh it against the 3 C's. What's good for the client, what's good for the company, and what's good for your colleagues. So that $100,000 that he wants to negotiate, is that a good deal for him? Yep, real good deal for him. Is it a good deal for our company? Nope, stinks for my company. I've already recorded that as revenue. Guess what? He got all the service he was entitled to. Because of this exceptional product we have. I'll mention that in a minute. And then is it good for my colleagues? Okay, which of my employees am I going to go to and take back their bonuses and the payrolls they got last year because we didn't earn all that money? So this is a bad deal. So I'm with the pound sand guy. I'm not doing this. I'm not compromising on that $100,000. He may have to get another vendor. It's not going to happen. I can't, because I can't please him, that's 1 C, undermine the company, and I'm not going to break my contract with my employees. So I can't tell you how it's going to come out because I'm talking to him this afternoon. But I want to talk about 3 things, and I want to do most of that in about 10 or 12 minutes or so. And one is just my background. I was raised in Saginaw, Michigan. I was blessed to be one of those people who absolutely understands what unmerited grace is, because at 11 months old, I was adopted by Oakley and Louise Bracken. I was Tom Clark at the time, 11 months old. And they adopted me through the state of Michigan adoption system. Obviously, it didn't change my life. I didn't have much of a life at 11 months old. It is my life that I was adopted by them, really unmerited favor and grace. And I was loved and raised with unconditional love by them. And my mom and my dad, they believed that you could do anything you put your hand to or anything you planned to do or wanted to do. And so my father worked 2 jobs, 2 union jobs his entire life. He was a janitor at General Motors, and he was a janitor for the school system. He was in the union in both ways. And in our spare time, we cleaned banks and other places like that. While we were living in the project, my father would spread out on the table his design for building his own house. a house that I was actually raised in later. We moved in when the subfloors were in, and then we just moved from room to room until he got the hardwood floors down. It was a mansion, 1,400 square feet. Fantastic place to grow up in. And a quarter acre of yard. And sometimes what we would do is just cut the whole yard in the shape of a baseball diamond, just cut all the lane, and then just play on it until the grass grew up again. That kind of place. But my parents really just believed you could do anything that you wanted to do. I told somebody at dinner last night, the other thing they believed in doing is always having something going that allowed them to earn some extra money or do something extra. So my mother did hair, so people from the black community understand that concept of doing hair. And my mother did hair at our house. She baked pies and sold them, and she made flowers. So the first job I ever had was selling flowers, and all you had to do this job when you were about 6 or 7 years old is to be able to hold a cake box like this full of flowers without tilting and getting distracted like little kids do and spilling it all on the ground. But as soon as I mastered that, I couldn't make change. I couldn't close the deal, but I could hold the box. And it was cute to have a kid holding the box. So I learned to sell with them, and as I grew up, I won every sales contest you could ever win in school, selling magazine, candy. And I really thought that all these efforts I had, especially selling the flowers, were just phenomenal entrepreneurism on my own. But I didn't realize that my mother paid for all the materials. And all I was doing is collecting the cash. So I grew up being a student of selling and independence and being able to just go ahead and try and do things. And I combined that with my loving parents and my father, who really believed. He wasn't a Seventh-day Adventist Christian. He was just a really good person, like the nicest person I've ever met or ever known, period. Just such a great dad. He believed in just trying to make it better for us than it had been for him. So he's always made sure I was in private schools and so forth. But I cooked into this idea that I wanted to be involved in IT and in healthcare when I was in high school. And then I charted a path to be involved in those two areas that I've followed my entire career. So I think there are two paths, two parts of what happens to all of us. One part of that path is the path you choose for yourself, consciously, right? And then there's another path that is a reflection of those things you encounter. And the two go together to determine what your journey is. I'm a pilot. I love to fly. So we do a lot of planning of trips and so forth. But the one element that you can't plan in on a chart or anything is the weather. So I have the plan that's laid out on maps and with GPSs and so forth, and then I have the weather that happens that day, that I usually give deference to the weather. Even if my plan went right through a thunderstorm, when I fly that plan, I fly around that thunderstorm is the way I fly. And my life has gone that way too. So I said to have this career in IT, I should get a degree in computer science, I should study business and so forth. So I was working on that plan. The weather that hit me is I couldn't sit still in a classroom. I had already gone to boarding school for 4 years. So going to college for me wasn't a big liberation, it was just another dorm. I wasn't going to spend 4 years in another dorm. So I got bored and got a job full time, and I only went to school at night. So I have this incredible resume, and some people brag about the number of A's they have on their resume. I have the main grade I got all the way through college was I. You know what I is for? What? Oh, you guys have some of those? Yeah. I have lots of those. I have those and parking tickets. Because if you go to school at night in Detroit, you get parking tickets for parking your car in the wrong place. And I got lots of I's. I'm actually proud. Once I used to think those I's were going to keep me from getting a job, but now they're a badge of honor. Because I have more I's than all the other letters that I have on my transcript from following that part of my path. Business-wise. And I started programming. I got a chance to work at Blue Cross Blue Shield and learn a little bit more about healthcare. And then I went for an interview for a job with Arthur Anderson at the time. And the last interview was the managing partners. The son was sitting. I'm sitting in the window in the corner office with him, and he basically tells me that they have no job for me. But the recruiter who brought me there, Lawrence Cater, said, there's this guy I want you to meet who's starting a new business. He really needs your help. So this buddy of mine, Rich Helpy, and I, he's a buddy today, we met, and we built a company called Superior Consultant Company, and that company, we were able to start in 1986. In 1996, 10 years later, we took it public. We bought a dozen companies. We were on the NASDAQ. We did a secondary. We had just a really terrific run. We worked in 34 different countries for over 4,000 hospitals, and we were involved in helping hospitals implement new technologies, whether it was in Malta or Australia or hundreds of hospitals throughout the United States. And then in 2005, we sold the whole thing to ACS Xerox. I stuck around for 4 or 5 years, and sometimes I think everything I learned that was important to business, I really learned in Sabbath school, because people used to ask me, once you were bought by a big company, didn't you just hate being there? And I'd say, actually, I didn't hate being there. They paid a lot of money for the company, so every day I was there, I woke up and thought, these guys paid a lot of money for this company. I love them. and so I worked there, and I enjoyed it. And I got to come in contact with the man, Darwin Deason, who built ACS in Dallas, which later became Xerox Services. They're the ones who bought our company. He purchased in 20 years, while we were building our IT company and taking it public, and we bought a dozen companies. That seems like a lot. He built ACS. In that same period of time, he bought 200 companies in that time. And his head of M&A at that time was John Rexford. So in 2008, I left Xerox and wondered what I was going to do for a while. In 2012, 4.5 years ago, I called John Rexford at Xerox and said, one of the companies I used to manage with you guys, would you be interested in selling it? And he said, you caught on a great day. We were just talking about that. Well, of course I knew that, because one of the people I knew who worked there told me that they were interested in selling it. So he said, no, you called on a great day. We'll sell it to you. And you know what? Because I never hated them, I had a good relationship with them overall. And he said, if you want to buy it, it's yours. And he said, you have to know this guy to believe he said this. He said, it's not going to cost you very much. You know? So I went to meet with him, because he's a bottom feeder. He only buys things he thinks that he can get really cheap. So I wondered what he was going to sell it to me for. But I went to see him, and he says, okay, how much do you want to pay for it? And I said, nothing right now. He said, what does that mean? I said, well, actually, I don't want to pay. It's losing $1 million a year. I don't want to pay anything for it. He said, well, how do you propose to do that? I said, why don't I give you a personal note, and I'll pay you in 5 years? He said, that's a terrible deal. I said, that's the one I want. He said, get out of here, you got it. I owe them that $5 million in September of this year, but I actually paid them off 2.5 years ago. Okay, yeah. A lot of hard work. And the company we have today, I'm going to go to this second slide. Sometimes when I go to meet with execs, I take a deck. This is my complete deck, one slide. They're usually relieved anyway, because they're so busy when you meet with the CEO to show them 10 slides, 30 slides, whatever your presentation. I hardly even have to hook up to their big screen television to show my one slide. I usually print it out and have it on a piece of paper, which tells all the components of the company we have today. And my entrepreneur's path has been through seeing these opportunities in a field that I picked by path, reacting in terms of the environment that I'm really in terms of the weather, and then finding a way to keep building on value and on relationships and on networking. So this company was called Patient Accounting Service Center because that's what it did when I bought it. We renamed it Jetix Health because we did, and nobody can pronounce it unless they know us, until they get to know us. And we've purchased 6 companies in the last 4.5 years. I have a private equity partner I brought in 2 years ago after I got the turnaround and could show some value in the company. That private equity company is listed there at the bottom, Trivest Partners down in Miami. And we're on a path to take this investment that I've made in the company 4.5, 5 years ago, the investment that Trivest joined me in 2.5 years ago, and realize that value on a recap or a sale sometime in the next 2 years or so. And we're on that path. And I've been, just as I've always done, I've been working on a plan to get that kind of return for myself and my investors. So That first return I got when the private equity guys came in, I took some money off the table, and now I'm on a path to take all the money that I left in and what they brought in and triple or quadruple that money over a 3 to 5 year period. That's the plan we're on. The whether we're dealing with is that client who wants a discount, or competing with another firm to get a certain amount of business, or following a key client as they change businesses and then going and doing something for that client that we haven't done before overall, and integrating these 6 companies that we built and trying to build a team that will be ready to help us on the exit. And I've got tremendous private equity partners in the Trivest team. They specialize in putting money behind founder-led companies. That's what attracted me to them, and we're on this path. So I think the key is to take these dreams that we have. They should fit into master plans that have to do with education and experience and constant learning. And then, by the grace of God, trying to have a set of values and core principles for dealing with the weather that we're facing as we move through this process, and make sure you're having fun the whole time. And that's what I've been trying to do with Jetix Health. And we have the greatest product in the world, cash. It's a wonderful product. That's what we provide to clients, cash. We don't have an R&D department. You don't have to innovate cash. We provide people to cash. All of our contracts are long-term recurring contracts, but we get a percentage of what cash we put in our clients' pockets overall for doctors and for hospitals and so forth. And so it's a really clean kind of business. We have no bad debt because cash is our product, right? And in some cases, the client's cash at Mayo, where we do their bad debt, and at Hackensack Memorial, or Hackensack Meridian, their cash comes through our bank account. We send off to them 90% of that cash. We keep the 10%, which is our fees. So I love these kind of businesses that are ugly, backroom, highly recurrent, high barriers to entry, and then having a team around you that you treat well and you can have a lot of fun with. So, I mean, that's who I am. That's my story. I'm living the dreams that you guys are aspiring to. I'm looking forward to getting off of this train after 40 years of doing it. But I'm also energized by being here and having a chance to meet all of you. Thank you.
Charles, thank you.
Good. Glad.
We're inspired. Everybody inspired? Yeah. So I'd love to take some questions from the audience. I want to ask you one about the state of talent in the workplace. What are you seeing? What kind of trends, people you're hiring, do you find they're ready to go when they come to you? Or do you have any internal training that you're running your employees through?
Both. I mean, we have some internal training, and we have hundreds of people working in the call centers who are hourly employees, and no matter what their backgrounds is, we always make sure they get a certain amount of training because we want them to have our values and our principles as they're dealing with patients and clients and so forth. And when we're looking for people who are in more senior positions, I'm interested in, structurally what they have to bring as assets, the path that brought them to us and the experiences, and then I want to eat dinner with them, spend time with them, find out what kind of people they are, and I'm encouraged by the talent that I see. I think there's a lot of talent out there.
Okay, on that point, if you wanted to know a lot about someone and you had 24 hours to do it, what would you do with that person to really find out their character, skill sets, and things?
I meet them in a neutral city, not their city or my city, and spend as much time with them as possible. Let's go for a walk before breakfast. Let's eat breakfast together. I'd want to hang out with them every minute I was awake, because at some point I'm just going to see who they are, I believe, and they're going to see who I am. It's not definitive and complete. It takes time to get to know someone, but I'd spend a lot of time with them.
Excellent.
Just time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. Who's got a question? I've got plenty for Charles, but I'd love to hear. I know somebody's drumming up a question out there. Yeah?
Charles, as part of your presentation, you mentioned how your life is a testament to divine mercy, how you were adopted, and basically how none of the accomplishments that you had could have pretty much taken place had God not actually guided your life. My question to you is, what are you doing, practical ways to extend that mercy and that grace to other individuals?
No, it's a good question. I'm just trying to be a nice guy every day. That's actually what I'm trying to do as hard as I can. I'd like to be like my father sometime. That's what I'm trying to do. But I'm always looking to see what God wants me to do. So when I was working and God had a foothold in IT and was going to school at night, I quit my job and spent a year on the street in Flint, Michigan, Donnie, working with kids who were hanging out in the park all day, that kind of stuff. And people said, if you take a year out of IT in the 70s, you're out for good. But I left because I had to do that. Later in my career, when I was in business school and also I'm gainfully employed, I quit my job and moved to the South Pacific and joined the Peace Corps. And I had a financial job in the Peace Corps in the South Pacific for 3 years. Now, I had an ulterior purpose, as I'm looking at you guys because you know my daughter, because I met my wife there, and that's how I got Mecky. So that was like the best thing I ever did. And Joseph, my son. But I met my wife while I was spending 3 years. So I dropped everything, gave my Corvette to my sister, and moved to Samoa and worked for the government for 3 years. And I came back, and I was looking for a job again in healthcare and IT. And a guy named Sabi Singh was interviewing candidates to be the CIO, a CIO at the Detroit Medical Center. And he said, you know why I picked you, and I'm probably going to give you the job if this goes well, is because I was so intrigued that you had been in the Peace Corps. I was thinking like, well, what skills do I have? But it was good. So, I'll do that anytime, I'm going to do what I'm called to do. And it seems to always work out well.
Awesome. I have a question. What's an area in the world you see totally outside of your sector, totally different industry, if you will, where you see a need or an itch that somebody should be scratching? Some business opportunity, anything that you've been chewing on or observing?
Donnie Bentley and I were talking about this. I was actually bending his ear about this. I'm very interested in our church to try to change the model that we use to fund Christian education, which the model we have now is if you don't pursue Christian education or allow your children to, God's going to hold you accountable if you can pay for it. So it's like you gotta pay for it. I think that ship has sailed. It worked great when wages were generally rising and so forth, but now that there's this disparity between wages happening, where wages for middle-class people have really stagnated or are falling off, and of course those who have better opportunities like you all, your wages are still going up. We can't fund Christian education anymore based on each family's ability to pay tuition. So I passionately am interested in that, and I'm involved in it. I'm talking to people about it. You just think, like, how could you have a hospital that didn't earn money? Well, the St. Jude's Children's Hospital doesn't earn any money, and anybody can take their child there. They will be treated to the fullest extent, the best medicine in the world, and never pay a penny. Not on your ability to pay, just that's not their business model. And I'm passionate about the future of Christian education needs to be demonetized. And I'm working on it different ways.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I like that idea. That's awesome. Another question. Yeah.
I noticed you mentioned taking on private equity as a way to grow your business. Did you have certain benchmarks to decide when you were ready to take it on, and why did you choose that route versus other forms to get capital to grow your business?
I love private equity and being a public company. Great idea. Like, you don't have to pay the money back, and if you fail, a lot of people fail with you. You don't have to put your house up. It's a great idea. It's a lot better than borrowing, right? So I enjoyed being public. It had a high bar in terms of reporting requirements and qualifications and so forth. and I love the private equity route. My private equity partners, they put millions of dollars into the company, tens of millions of dollars in the company to get their stake in equity. And then they loan the company $60 million that we used to buy, other companies with. And then only in the last 3 months have we converted some of that loan from them into senior debt from a bank and so forth. So, I mean, I love the concept. And if you embrace it, it doesn't mean you're going to get it, right? Because it is really, really hard to get private equity money. So some people say, I know I could get it, but I don't want it because I want to control. Well, I don't know that you can get it. Why don't you try to get it and then reject it after they offer it? Because it is really, really, they know how to say no. That's what they do the best, is say no. So if you think you could use it, try to get it, right? And if you can't get it, that answers for itself. If you can always make the decision, am I going to take it or not? But I think it can propel your business. So I have more value in the company now than I had for the first 2.5 years when we turned it around and we were making all the money on our own. We had this much value, but now the company's this big and I have this much value. So I have almost twice as much value, but I have a huge private equity partner. So I like the concept. Pick your partners well.
Any other things on your heart you'd like to say? Last words to inspire everybody here? Anything you're passionate about? Anything else you want to say?
I'm passionate about lots of things. Flying. My son and I are going camping in 3 weeks in Alaska, off the grid for a week. I'm not, I work some 16-hour days and that kind of stuff, and I've been living this journey for decades now, but it's not the only thing I'm interested in. I hate missing my Sabbath school class and things like that. So, I love those things too. Life's bigger than just one thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Let's
you.
give it up for
Thanks.
Charles.